Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be finishing up the book of Judges and transitioning into the book of Ruth. And it's kind of cool that it's timing out this way because Ruth, as we'll see, is just a light in the darkness. And there's just so much going on in Ruth, and it's just such a rich accounting here. And again, we'll see that if I'm not careful, I'll get ahead of myself. So finishing up Judges from last time together. Um, what we had seen is that the Benjamites, since they had been the culprits in the basically the gang rape of the Levite's concubine, because of that, the Levite had parted his concubine into 12 pieces and sent them out to each of the tribes of Israel, and then they gathered together at Mizpah, to basically, hey, what are we going to do about this? They had sought out the Benjamites and asked for the perverts, that they be released and dealt with. They weren't. The Benjamites chose to go to war with them instead. And so, as the other tribes fought against them, we saw the tribes kind of seeking out the Lord, which they hadn't been, because again, we're inside of this context of there's no king, right? There's no king in Israel. There's everyone is doing right, and they're are doing what they see right in their own eyes. In other words, they're not following God. Yet there are three times that they seek out the Lord, because in these initial battles with the Benjamites, they're losing. And then finally, the third supplication to God, God lets them know that the Benjamites are going to be delivered into their hand, and they are. And the Benjamites are almost utterly wiped out. So there ends up being this remnant of 600 Benjamites that hang out in the rock of Rimmon, and all the other tribes had made this rash vow, saying that they would not allow their daughters to marry the Benjamites. But yet they're grieving. They don't want to see their brothers blotted out. They want the Benjamites also to be able to build up again. And then in this congregation, or this meeting, or this at Mizpah, they, in their conversations, they realized that in there was another area that had not come up to help them battle in the beginning, in Jabesh Gilead. So they go to Jabesh Gilead, and they gather the virgins there, but it's still not enough in terms of matching with the 600 Benjamites. So there's still a lacking of women, and so then there's this festival at Shiloh, this yearly festival, and so then they come up with this solution of as the festival's going on at Shiloh, and the women are out dancing, that the Benjamites, basically those without a wife or without a lady, go in and literally kidnap these dancing women at the festival, which is what they do. And it says, again, this is chapter 21 of Judges. It says, well, just to read the verse, it's verse 20. Go lie in wait in the vineyards and watch, and just when the daughters of Shiloh come out to perform their dances, then come out from the vineyards, and every man catch a wife for himself from the daughters of Shiloh. Then go to the land of Benjamin. Then it shall be, when their fathers or their brothers come to us to complain, that we will say to them, be kind to them for our sakes, because we did not take a wife for any of them in the war. For it is not as though you have given the women to them at this time, making yourselves guilty of your oath. And the children of Benjamin did so. They took enough wives for their number from those who danced, whom they caught. Then they went and returned to their inheritance, and they rebuilt the cities and dwelt in them. So the children of Israel departed from there at that time, every man to his tribe and family. They went out from there, every man to his inheritance. And we end Judges with, in those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. And now we transition into the book of Ruth. And the book of Judges, as we've seen, was very historical. And the last chapters, chapters 17 through 21, really wasn't so much furthering what was going on. It was again giving us that window into what was going on, as does Ruth. So Ruth is not forwarding any history here either as we get into this book, but we see two very different accountings. And in Judges, with everyone doing what was right in their own eyes, not following God, we see the laws not being followed. We see blessings not being given as such. And then in Ruth, it's just this beacon of light where there are so many things that are playing out, and we get to really see and study together, how upright men and upright women, follow the laws, what comes of that, and for me, it's well, and it's huge in grace, and we're going to see that we're going to see this Boaz character, this gentleman as a type of Christ, and we're just going to see so much grace just around and just enveloped over this book of Ruth. But what I want to point out also is sometimes when we think of laws or following laws, there seems to be this tendency in a rebellious mindset of how fun is that? I mean, what's going to come of that? I mean, so great. You lay out a law, you lay out a commandment. Okay, who made you right? Who made you the bearer of you know of the right thing to do? And so there really is that. There really is in our flesh that rebelliousness. To God. To each other. Just how mean we can be to each other, and how almost contemptible we can be as well. So I want you to loosen up your mind. I want you to loosen up your heart, and just really in terms of just following the laws, and reading this account, as we look at it together, just I hope and I pray that you really see God's grace here and really what's going on, and that it touches you and that it instructs you, because it has for me and is. This was just a really phenomenal reading this morning. So as we open up the book of Ruth, some things, some things to point out is, we're coming out of the book of Judges, and with the book of Judges, and then here in the book of Ruth, these are average people. So it's what's going on right now in this time of history. What's going on with these average people, and also that we're getting to see a segment of society that was stable here, that was governed by wise elders, in which the laws of the covenant are being respected and they're also being kept. And one of the things that we're, I'll actually, I'll wait on that one, and we'll just discover it as we go through. Okay, so starting in chapter 1, so there's this gentleman by the name of Elimelech, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. So Elimelech, it says in verse 1 that now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to dwell in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, the name of his wife was Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. Ephrathrots of Bethlehem. So that word Ephrathra means fruitful, and this was a name given to those of Bethlehem. So it says they were of Bethlehem, Judah, and they went to the country of Moab and remained there. Then Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left and her 2 sons. Now they took wives of the women of Moab. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. And they dwelt there about 10 years. Then both Mahlon and Chilion also died. So the woman survived her 2 sons and her husband. Just right here in the opening arena, if we reference back to chapter 23 of Deuteronomy, verses 3 through 6, it refers to the Moabites here. It says, Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 3, "An Ammonite or Moabite shall not enter the assembly of the Lord. Even to the 10th generation, none of his descendants shall enter the assembly of the Lord forever. Because they did not meet you with bread and water on the road when you came out of Egypt, and because they hired against you Balaam, the son of Beor, from Pether of Mesopotamia, to curse you. Nevertheless, the Lord your God would not listen to Balaam, but the Lord your God turned the curse into a blessing for you, because the Lord your God loves you. You shall not seek their peace nor their prosperity all your days forever. So it really brings up the question right here in the beginning. So here's Elimelech, from Bethlehem of Judah, and there's famine in the land, which speaks to really what we've already seen in Judges. I mean, as mostly more than not, the everyone, the Israelites are not following God, and as such, they're not seeing blessings, and so we're seeing a famine in the land, which really brings into question: is it because of what we've already seen in Judges? So knowing Deuteronomy chapter 23 here that we just read, about the Moabites, why is it that Elimelech is going into Moab? Right? So Moab would be east of the Jordan. So he would have passed through lands of his own people, like Gad and Reuben, the Reubenites and Manasseh. Yet nonetheless, he goes into Moab, and so while in Moab, he dies. His two sons die, but they had taken wives before they died, and so now Naomi, his wife, is left alone. So it says in verse 6, Then she arose with her daughters-in-law that she might return from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab that the Lord had visited his people by giving them bread. So the famine appears to be over in Bethlehem. So now they're leaving. She's leaving Moab, going back to the land where they had come from, Bethlehem. And so it says, verse 7, Therefore she went out from the place where she was, and her two daughters-in-law with her, and they went on the way to return to the land of Judah. And Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, Go, return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you. So she's telling him, just leave. The Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant that you may find rest, each in the house of her husband. So she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept. And they said to her, Surely we will return with you to your people. So Naomi's blessing them and trying to send them on their way. So Naomi's really wanting to return to Bethlehem on her own. And from the outset here, both Orpah and Ruth are saying, Hey, no, we're going to return with you. And then Naomi says, to them again, No, turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? And then she gives this account of, hey, she's too old to have children. She'll never have sons again. There's nobody who she'll have for them to marry. And even if she were to have kids, are they really going to wait around forever to, for this time period for them to ultimately be able to marry? And ending this account by saying, No, my daughters, for it grieves me very much for your sakes that the hand of the Lord has gone out against me. Then they lifted up their voices and wept again, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her, and she said, Look, she, meaning Naomi, is speaking to Ruth, saying, Look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law. Naomi's saying, Hey, go. Orpah's going back to her gods and her people. You should do the same. And this is so sweet and amazing what Ruth says to Naomi in verse 16. And she says, Entreat me not to leave you or to turn back from following after you. For wherever you go, I will go. And wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me and more also, if anything but death parts you and me. And when she saw that she was determined to go with her, she stopped speaking to her. And so the two of them now return back to Bethlehem. And so when they get there, everyone's excited to see them. Everybody in Bethlehem, is this Naomi? And she says straight up right from the beginning, Do not call me Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. I went out full, and the Lord has brought me home again empty. Why do you call me Naomi, since the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has afflicted me? So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabites, her daughter-in-law with her, who returned from the country of Moab. Now they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest. So Naomi had left, as she says, full with her husband and her sons. Now she's coming back. Her husband has died. Her sons are dead. She's saying, Do not call me Naomi. Call me Mara. Call me bitter. And as when we get together next time, we get to see this unfolding of Ruth right here at barley harvest, which would be the first fruits, which will speak to Christ.